library doing my uploading. Yes, I'm parked in the handicap zone, but technically my van qualifies as handicap. It's got a cracked windshield, a burnt out headlight, bad tires, brakes aren't the best, so it's kind of handicapped. So I'm just going to leave it. Well, it's after hours, so I can park here after hours. Just kidding around here. Okay, reasons for World War III. This is a question I get from time to time, and it can be speculated so many different directions that you almost don't know where to really start. I mean, there's just so many possibilities. So we'll start with the obvious and work to the maybe not so obvious. First one is oil. That one we'll say is the obvious, because we know of the gas pipelines and stuff like that. It's not so much about where the gas pipelines go or the oil where it gets pumped from or where it's going to. It's what it's sold in. And it's not just oil. There's a whole bunch. It's everything from wheat to grain. The idea of a reserve currency like the U.S. petrodollar, okay, that is better than the golden rule. The golden rule is ye who has the gold rules, but ye who controls the domination of the gold, and the resources is even better off, because it doesn't matter if you own the resources if they have to sell it in your currency. Hence, here in Canada, how strong would Canada be as a nation if we sold our oil, had been selling our oil in Canadian dollars and not US dollars? We'd be unbelievably much more powerful than what we were, or what we are. And the petrodollars actually held us back. It's helped us because we're a bordering nation to the United States, sure, granted, but it's actually held us back in, increasing the value of our currency. I won't get too far into it, but you get the idea. And the reason why it does is because if your currency gets too inflated, this is what's going on in Greece, Spain, and Italy, and all those places right now, is when you own your own currency, you can devalue your currency. At the same time, the Chinese have purposely devalued their currency so it wouldn't get too strong. And how they did that was by buying U.S. debt. So if the Chinese ever decide to get rid of that $4 trillion of debt that's owed, that they own of the U.S., well, the hyperinflation will hit China so hard they won't even know. It'll just knock them off their feet. You know what I mean? So they have two options: A, spend the currency, which they've built these mega cities that nobody lives in, gigantic cities nobody lives in China, so that if the U.S. currency goes down, which it is kind of going down, that it doesn't. You're not stuck holding all this worthless cash, that you actually still have value to your currency. Now, that sounds good and dandy and all. If you manage it properly, you shouldn't have any problems. The problem is everything's rigged, everything's corrupt, nobody's managing anything properly. You can even get away with fiat currency if you don't, if you manage it properly. Not in the sense that it holds any more value or any less value. What it is that you're not creating the cost of living so high that people just can't afford to leave. Like, everybody thinks it's a minimum wage issue. Okay, the reason why people can't get by is because they're not making $15 an hour or something like that. That's not true. That is definitely not true. It's not about the $15 an hour. $15 an hour really won't help you, because $15 an hour when your taxes go up doesn't help you. You lose it in taxes, and yeah, you're making a little more money, but you're now paying more in taxes, so you're not really making any more. The other one is that it's not that you need to be making $15 an hour. It's your money cannot buy what it used to. I'll use my dad as an example, okay? Right now I'm driving around in my mom's van. This was her last van. And it was well used when she bought it. The heck was that? And she paid $1,800 for this van. That's already, I guess, she had it for about 3 or 4 years before she passed away. And this van, off the line, would probably have been close to $20,000 for a ship bucket like this. I shouldn't say that until I get home. it might resent me and leave me somewhere. My dad bought a brand new Chevy Nova back in '73 for $29,99.95 cash. He bought it cash. Now in '73, he wasn't making $20 an hour. Now, mind you, when we went out to the pipelines out west in the later '70s. My dad was making insane money for the time. He was bringing home probably about $4,000 a month in 1978, 79, working on a pipeline. That'd be like making 15 grand now, I'm just throwing an arbitrary number of that, but you could see how much more the money bought you back then. So in 1 month, you could buy a car, and that was the end of a recession. That was getting on the tail ends of a recession. In the 1970s, there was a huge recession. But in 1 year's time, you made not only enough money, if you were working, like, say, on a pipeline or something, a really high-skilled labor job, you could make enough money to buy a car a month and still have more than enough to raise your family, 2 kids and a wife, and you know what I mean? Like, you can't even fathom them. Like, and that was the common man. That was the common person working. Most women didn't work at that time. It's still the same. Most men work, but the thing is women are alienated now to the point where, the provider is either the government or themselves. There is no husbands. You know what I mean? Like, there's still husbands and wives, but it's not like it used to be where, you met your high school sweetheart, you got married, and from there you went and bought a house, white picket fence, had 3 kids, a cat, goldfish, 2 dogs, a pet gerbil or a mouse, maybe a pet turtle or 2, 3 cars, a boat, possibly an airplane or a helicopter, that type of thing. And that's the people that weren't really that wealthy. That's the people that really weren't that wealthy. You probably only had one TV in your household. If you had 2 TVs and 1 colored and 1 black and white, you were doing good. If you had 2 colored TVs in your household and a third black and white TV, holy geez, you were, But you could buy, like right now, you got to lease a TV. You know what I mean? You got to lease a TV. Back then, a state-of-the-art TV, okay, maybe a month's worth of saving up, you could buy it. You didn't buy things on credit. The furniture stores didn't have credit. You went in and you bought the furniture and you left that day with it. You didn't put it on layaway. You didn't. I mean, there were, exceptions to the rule. But generally speaking, no. When you bought things for the house, the china cabinet, the dining set, you bought it cash. Now, the average person making $3, $4, $5 an hour could still do this. It would take them all year to do it, but they could still do it. Why? Because rent was like $80, $90, $200 a month. An expensive place would be like $600 a month. But that'd be like renting a house with all expenses paid, pretty much. You know what I mean? Maybe not everywhere, but you get the idea of the average. Now, find an apartment for $600 with nothing included. Good luck. Good luck. Why? Your currency just doesn't buy as much. So this is what has to be understood about a reason why the petrodollar becomes such a death and debt-based economy for the United States, and not just the United States, and the central banking systems, is because the money becomes so worthless that people just can't afford to live. So it's not a wage problem, it's a currency problem. I used Adam Carolla as an example. Somebody else was talking about him, I think on SGDT Bull Report, saying that he had bought this fancy sports car that was like $60,000. The first guy that bought it, he bought it for like $300,000. Yeah, this thing's going to go up in value, but it didn't really go up in value. It's just your currency. The car's value doesn't change. It's depreciating. A car is a consumable. No matter, even if we're talking a Ferrari, it's a consumable. The tires wear out, the engine wears out, the windshields crack, brakes go, headlight doesn't work on the low beam on the right side, hypothetically speaking. Things wear out, so they depreciate. They're not gaining in value. So when the price goes up, is it because the car is becoming more rare? That's a possibility, and in that case, it might gain value. But if this is a car that you can buy just about anywhere, it will depreciate, and that'll offset the high price. But to buy it new, and one of 2 million in the series, at 30 grand, like this same van, to build it today is going to cost you 30 grand. Yes, given a little more technology, but the actual consumption of parts that it takes to make this thing, again, hasn't really went up that much for the amount of materials needed. The material is still about the same, but yet the cost is so much higher because the currency is so much more worthless. So this needs to be understood as a motive, that people are starting to notice they're becoming more poor. And they're becoming more poor because of really bad decisions that the bankers have made. Basically, gambling your future retirement 40-1, that type of thing. Now, after 2008, this is pretty much, and you can pretty much follow this, it is a cycle to a degree, that any world war that's ever started was brought in on the tail end of a massive recession/depression. World War I came in, the Depression came after that, but early 1900s, the currency bought you, more gold. Like gold was like $35 an ounce at the year 1900 or 1910 or whatever. $35 an ounce. It's $1,200 an ounce now. Not because the paper is that much more valuable that the currency is printed on. It's worse. The money's not even worth the currency is not even worth the money it's not even printed on. So the paper is still the same weight, same size, same dimensions, roughly same amount of time to produce, same technology, a little more fancy, but same technology to print an actual piece of currency or stamp a coin or whatever. That really hasn't changed in 200 years. It hasn't really changed that much. Anti-theft stuff, yeah, okay, fine. But the process hasn't really changed. They're still doing the same thing. So why does it buy so much less? Because it's so much more inflated. It's so much more leveraged. And now, what that happens is, again, like we're seeing worldwide, is people just can't afford to live. And the inflation of goods and services is at that point where it's becoming unaffordable to live. In other words, there needs to be a war, or we're going to have a massive collapse. And if we do, the bankers are going to get blamed. So the bankers don't want to get blamed. So the best thing to do when all else fails is take you to war. So that's motive one. The motive two is, if we can't have it, nobody can. Meaning all those resources that if they stay in your currency, it doesn't matter how much you inflate your currency. There's no rival to it. It's the best looking girl at the ball, even if she's godforsaken ugly. She's the only girl at the ball. So she's going to get a dance anyway. You know what I mean? And that's what the U.S. currency really is. They're all the currencies in the world are pretty much in free fall. It's just they're all falling roughly about the same weight, so you don't notice as much. But at some point, it just completely you end up with Weimar Republic or Zimbabwe economics, which we're really not that far off. Zimbabwe didn't go to $20 trillion deficit, I don't think. They had nothing backing their currency, and they just printed it to do all this infrastructure stuff, but it didn't work. Now, the United States got rid of all its manufacturing. Canada, we got rid of all our manufacturing. We have a few mines left and some pipelines, but those are being shut down by the very people that control the resources, who want to take resources from other countries for cheaper labor and basically get their oil from the Middle East, get the gold and silver from other countries, whatever, and lumber and all that. Get it from other countries that you don't have to pay as much in the wages and stuff. And wages are the cheap part, but it's the regulations. That type of thing. So what they do is, that's what all this climate change BS is about, is to regulate the jobs away from Canada, the United States, Europe, and give them to third world countries which have simply no regulations at all. Look at what NAFTA has done for China. And the Chinese, trust me, they seized on it. They knew that this was a white elephant, but they seized on it, and somehow they spun it to kind of work in major favor for themselves, even though they've got a manipulated system too. But when their system crashes, they can start over with a gold-backed currency, and now they have reserve status. So that means the death and debt-based petrodollar, either take our currency or we drop democracy JDAMs on your country in the name of regime change for the women and children, although we'll mainly drop them on women and children. That now becomes more terrifying, because if you come up against a country that you can't just bomb so that their currency can't get ahead. It's the same reason why we got rid of Saddam. It wasn't for weapons of mass destruction or terrorism or anything like that. Bin Laden went to Pakistan, we bombed the shit out of Iraq, right? Makes no sense. Unless you understand that 4 days before the bombing, Saddam Hussein said he was going to sell his oil in the euro and not the petrodollar. Gaddafi did the same. He was going to open up these giant aquifers under Libya and pump water through the Middle East as well as gold, and have a gold-backed dinar. That was his death sentence. Saudi Arabia in 2012 said that by the year 2022, 2025, they will be taking other currencies for their oil, other than the petrodollar, meaning competition. Notice right after they have this big problem with the Houthis. Everybody will blame Iran, but even at that, it won't matter. The Iranians have already offered to work with the Saudis to, we'll pump oil on our side, and you guys refine it because you have all the refineries, and we'll split the profits. The Saudis don't want to do it because they're too connected to the United States. But the Saudis are in a rock and a hard place. They have no friends. And because of that, they're being destabilized. Russia's pressuring them with Iran, with backing the Houthis, to basically, you can take our currency now, but if they do that, then the United States they'll do something else to Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia's in a rock and a hard place. They're being told you have to pick one, pick wisely. The problem is catch-22. If they ditch the U.S. dollar and the U.S. currency collapses, or starts the currency collapse with OPEC, then you're going to have war. There's going to have to be regime change in Saudi Arabia. It's not going to be allowed to happen. And trust me, the United States won't put up with it. That's why the Middle East is it's a volatile thing. because it's so twisted up to the point where you can't make a decision that doesn't lead you to war. It's becoming insolvent. So if you support this side, you go to war. You support that side, you go to war, or they go to war with you. So that's where that's at. So that's the currency side of it. Control the denominations, what goods and services are sold in. Then you have no competition. You can print as much money as you want. But as soon as somebody brings an honest dollar, and the Chinese yuan renminbi is not an honest currency, but at least it's semi-backed by gold. The Russian ruble is definitely not an honest currency, but at least it's semi-backed by gold and other resources and what have you. So those currencies, they're competition, but they're not a saint. They're not the absolute, here we go, here's a completely non-corrupted currency. And the only currency that you can't really corrupt is silver and gold and palladium and platinum and other things like that. You can't really manipulate those as currencies because they're solid assets. You can't really change them into something they're not. What you can do is leverage or devalue against these currencies, oil, gold, silver, whatever it is, and manipulate by manipulating your currency against it. But the problem is the only way they really seem to be manipulating gold to drive the price down is by putting non-existent gold futures contracts back on the market, meaning you can only do that for so long because there's only so many gold futures. You have to rely on selling these gold contracts, okay, to guarantee that you can keep, putting the gold and silver down. Now, I'm not a gold bug or a silver bug. I'm too poor. I told you about my headlight, right? I can't even afford that, let alone silver and gold. I'm more of a bread and bullets kind of guy. But barter and trade. But the thing is this: at some point, they will not be able to manipulate the gold or silver because nobody's going to be buying these contracts. And some of these contracts, they take whatever market value. Here's a gold contract. Give us $5 for it. It's yours. That type of thing. So they'll make a little money off of it. But at some point, it's law of diminishing returns. They just can't go that far. And the problem that runs you into, you lie, gas gauge. You lie. You're not the wealthiest person when you argue with your gas gauge. Really, you lie. I guess I better turn around. I don't want to have to push this thing. It's uphill both ways, so I don't want to have to push it. I'm actually not lying. There's a lot of hills. So you lie, gas gauge. But anyway, you get the idea that at some point, law of diminishing returns will take over. There's no possible way they're going to be able to manipulate the gold. The gold's just going to run away. And it's not because the gold's going to go up in value. It's because the currencies are just going to inflate to the point that they're going to go down in value, where that leaves you with one option: deflation. You have to destroy your currency. But then they run into the problem you have now: $19 trillion deficit and another $4 trillion being pushed off. The Obama administration is already $4 trillion over this year's budget. $4 trillion. That much, $1 trillion, in currency doesn't even really exist on the planet in physical currency. Let alone 10 planets. It's an unfathomable amount of money, let alone 20 trillion. And if you add up all the stuff that they owe, it could be as much as 240 trillion. It's just, or $4 quadrillion. You're hearing these numbers, people don't even know what that means. I don't even know what it's $4 quadrillion. A quadrillion dollars is something like a one with something like 10,000 zeros behind it or something like that. You can't, you could build a staircase of $1,000 bills to the moon and back, and still probably twice. It's just an unfathomable amount of money. It just, it just makes, it's just bizarre. So that doesn't exist. So if you start deflating your currency, then you have to cut government. You have to do massive amount of austerity, because if not, everything will just implode. But as soon as you start doing the austerity on an economy that doesn't produce anything, and on an economy that really, is floated by this inflated money, then you're in real trouble, because now you're going to have a pitchfork revolution because everybody's starving. Nobody can get money out of the banks. There'll be bank runs, whatever. It'll just be a nightmare. And the world elites, they'll be strung from the gallows. So they know this. That's why they're building bunkers. That's why they're trying to get a war going. Their only way out is war. So that's the economic side of it. Of, again, just scratching the surface of a motive to go to war. The second motive, or third motive, or whatever, whichever motive I'm at, but another motive would be the satanic motive. Now, I'm not what you would call a Bible thumper at all, or a religious person, but I know religious people exist, religious zealots, people who again, you could call them a hydra. They worship one idea. You cut off one head, 10 more pop up. And I'm not just talking about radical Muslims. I'm talking radical Jews, radical Hindus, radical Christians, radical atheists, whatever. And yes, atheism is a religion. No, it's not. You don't understand atheism. I understand it very well. It takes a lot of belief to believe in certain things without making a connection that if you don't have absolute proof, it doesn't exist. That type of thing. Or show me the proof, it doesn't exist. But, like I know over there's going to be a tree with leaves falling on the ground. I can't see it, but I know it's there. You know what I mean? So I don't really have to prove to you that it's doing it at all times, right? But you can get into those philosophical questions if you want. But the case in point is, what we can say for sure, there are people that are so convinced in their ideology, whether it's progressivism, a normal religion like Christianity or Islam or whatever, or Judaism or Zionism. I think I said progressivism, which is a new religion. It's a new religion. It doesn't really matter. These people are brainwashed into believing what they believe. And they will go hell-bent on anything to get it done. Now, your Zionist Christians, these ones are probably very, and the Jesuits and stuff like that, these people are very dangerous, as well as the Zionists, now, as well as the Islamic ones, because all these guys believe in an afterlife and the second coming of somebody. One prophet or another. The Muslims believe, yes, Jesus will come back as a prophet to serve beside Muhammad when he comes back, to serve beside the Al-Mahdi, right, when he comes back. But they can't come back, their saviors can't come back without the Battle of Armageddon and what have you. Now the Christians, they believe in the second coming of Christ, and the Muslims call it Day of the Reckoning, Day of the Lord, Armageddon. There's a few names depending on which denomination you're talking about, but they all kind of describe this big battle where a god comes back and smites the enemies and scorches the earth and does all this stuff. But the thing is the Messiah, whoever he may be or believed to be, catastrophic things have to come from any one of these religions. Extremely catastrophic things have to happen in order for them to come back, meaning World War III or worse. I don't know what would be worse, but whatever would be worse or worse. So when we're looking at it like that, what we're looking at is something that only you can't put natural logic and reason to this. So a lot of times on my World War III updates, I get the saner heads are going to prevail. They're not going to push the button because it would be insane. They would kill themselves. They would kill their own families. They're not going to do it. It's all going to be saber rattling. They're never going to take it to that extreme. Okay, but then there are people who blow themselves up in the name of insert ism here. There's no shortage of that in history. It's just we happen to be doing it in the nuclear age. You have doomsday cults of all kinds, all over the world. Not mainly handful factions of. Did they make it? Did they make it? Oops. Sorry. I don't want to go in the ditch and I don't want anybody to rear end me. I'll never make that cliff. This will be a nice little treat for you guys. If I can find them. Where are they? Oh, they're there. Hey, you fat little bastards. We'll get back. Don't go in the ditch. I don't know if you can see them or not. 1, 2, 3 raccoons. Go, 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 go! Climb! You shouldn't be crossing the roads. And none of you look both ways. I see you. I see you. 1, 2, 3 fat raccoons. I don't know. You can see one of them anyway. They're out during the daytime too. That's so cute. I really shouldn't be sitting on this corner. That was cool. Alright, they're gone. I'm sorry, but it's like I saw the first two and then the third one. He's like, don't run me over. I wasn't going to run over. I don't think my van would survive hitting a raccoon. Alright, so anyway, get going again. That was cute. So anyway, yeah, like I said, there's no shortage of people willing to blow themselves up, do these kind of things, doomsday cults that we have to kill them to save them kind of types. And speed up a bit here. I don't run into anybody. There we go. Got a truck behind me. Not a big truck. So anyway, yeah, it's like these people, they're not sane of mind. They are insane. Your neocons, whether they're Democrat or they're Republican, all these people, their religion is war hawk. That is literally their religion. You know, you could say it's about dollars and cents and money and stuff like that. No, these people just, they're doomsday cults. They like Hillary Clinton, that type of thing. Like this woman can't wait to go to war with Russia or China. Same with Zbigniew Brzezinski, Henry Kissinger. That's all these people do is war. That's all they know. And that type of thing. And holy Jesus, this guy's tight to my... I've got a red truck tight to my butt here. It's like, this is my little van. It doesn't go that fast. Back it off a bit. But anyway, yeah. So you're factoring in that those people are sane. And historically speaking, or statistically speaking, psychopaths always look for positions of power. So it's never uncommon when most of your people in positions of power are just a little off. Case in point, look at Bill Clinton right now with, you know, like Donald Trump. There's no doubt he's a psychopath. But look at how bad Bill Clinton actually was. And probably, well, was, still is. You know, leopards don't change their spots. And in abusive positions of power, which for some reason these nut jobs in power always seem to be able to manipulate people around them, government workers, whatever, Department of Justice, like for Hillary Clinton, the media, whatever, to run defense for them. So they enable these incredibly insane people. Now, when you have people that are in charge of launching nuclear weapons, running defense for people like Hillary Clinton, George Bush, that type of thing, no wonder you get these insane wars. Because these people are not, these people are insane. They're not sane. They speak rationally, they like, or not rationally, but they speak like they're rational, but they really are insane. They're clinically insane. They are the worst of the narcissistic psychopaths you can get. Because they have access to weaponry to quail dissent, destroy any sort of, what you call it, holy geez, Leadfoot. You and your big dually with your 6 tires. Push my little van with only 4 tires. I'm like doing 90, you still got to pass me. But anyway, yeah, you get the idea. That factor, I think, I can't say for sure, but it does seem to be like, if you follow George Soros, for example, this guy is death and destruction. Wherever George Soros money goes, death and destruction follows. Holy geez, buddy, keep it on the road. It's like getting Leadfoot, eh? Like what's the rush? What's the rush? But you get the idea that you have to put so much faith in these people actually making rational decisions that it's an impossibility. And the odds are simple. You have more psychopaths in power than not in power. Look at how hard it is to put Hillary Clinton in jail. If I went and sold a candy bar somewhere, I can almost guarantee you I'm going to go to jail for stealing a candy bar. This woman has embezzled millions and millions of dollars. There are body counts that lead to this person's, you know, all these dead bankers, all that stuff. We see all that stuff, and the only thing that leaves you with is that these people don't go to jail because they control the system that's, you know, the fox is guarding the hen house, that type of thing. And it's scary because these are the same people that are in charge of the decision making and also in charge of the weapons that allow thermonuclear exchange. Very, very, very scary. And the other problem is what happens when what do you call it, a movable object runs into a solidified force, you know what I mean? It's just, you know, bad to worse. And that's what you have with Russia, China, India, Pakistan, the United States, and other countries that are nuclear as well. United Kingdom. I mean, I listened to, what do you call him, Boris Johnson over there in the UK. He's basically talking about getting serious on a no-fly zone in Syria, which the Russians pretty much have already established with their air defense systems. Basically, they're saying we need to, for the Assad, to overthrow Assad. It doesn't matter about the people there. It's not for the women and children. We have to get rid of Assad because we have to get this puppet out of there. There's no getting rid of what do you call it? There's no how do we negotiate away? No, we need to enforce a no-fly zone. So Boris Johnson is a war hawk. I mean, if he understands truly what a no-fly zone means, he's insane. You're talking about shooting down Russian aircraft, okay, in Syria. Now, mind you, this could be the checkmate that the New World Order wants, meaning as soon as we shoot down Russian aircraft, we know they're going to have to respond in kind, which gives us our excuse to go to war. Or if we could set up a scenario where the Russians or the Chinese could shoot first, then we could justify the war, like a Pearl Harbor type of thing. But the Chinese and the Russians, I don't think they truly want war, because we'd have it now. We'd have it already if they wanted it. And I think it's very clear that they don't want it. But that said, again, Putin's the only one out there screaming that don't do that, you will lead us to irreversible consequences. That, he's even called, for the American people, do you not realize how insane your leaders are? I think a lot of Americans do. But the thing is who steps up to stop these things? Well, I'll tell you who's going to step up to stop these people. Call them spooks with a conscience, patriots, hellhounds, whatever. Those people are going to be what I call the hellhounds for sure. But they're basically going to be... they're going to have to be psychopaths themselves. So new boss could be worse than the old boss. We don't know. So really, I think when it comes to nuclear weapons, until we see these things hurled into the sun, any means possible, on a global effort, it's not a matter of if we will have a thermonuclear war, but just when. Now, the next question people always keep asking, when's it going to happen? Is it going to happen this week, next month, 15 minutes from now, 20 years from now? The honest answer is, I don't know. All I can say is we just look at the incrementalness of it and how it's basically building up. That's really all we can do. We can't do anything more than that, and just prepare ourselves for the insanity that they're trying to rain upon us. We're going to do a Huey here at Beauchamps. Oh, I'm going to a gas station. I still don't believe my gas station. I think it lied to me. I can make it home. Gotta hope I make it home. Yeah, I should make it home. But anyway, yeah, motives. There could be other motives too. But I think those would be the biggest motives. Religious being one. I think it's the less likely motive. I think it's just more the corruption aspect of it. But the dynamic of, bicycle, gotta watch it. Up here in Otter Lake, the kids just play right in the center of the road all the time. They're worse than the raccoons. Jeez. But anyway, yeah, it's like something that you just... There's so many possibilities. Where do you end the conversation? You know what I mean? Obviously, these people cannot be right in the head if they don't understand the true power of these weapons. And even if it doesn't go thermonuclear, it doesn't really matter. The conventional weapons are insane. I don't know if they have pizza. There's a dog on the road, kids on the road. Get down off the road. Get off the road, dog. Get off the road. Stupid. I don't know if they're... No, it's not tonight they make pizza. Tomorrow night they make pizza. that pizzeria there, it's not a pizzeria, it's just a corner store that has pizza. It's really, really good. It's like that thick of cheese. Your arteries go when you eat it. It's awesome. You won't live long, but you'll enjoy your life. It's like, be happy, right? But yeah, it's like, where do we take this conversation to? There's so many dynamics, dogs and kids. Out for the evening stroll. I think they lost a dog, though. Dogs all over the road, kids all over the road. And I don't want to run anybody over here because I'm probably related to them. Otherwise I wouldn't care, but, just saying. It's like half of Otter Lake I'm related to, and I don't even know half of them. It's funny. Yeah. You're related to such, it's all, everybody knows everybody by last name. It's like, you're this clan, that clan, whatever. It's all good. Love it. Small town, 250 people, 4 last names. Yeah. At least they're not inbred, But anyway, yeah. Anyway, so, case in point, when we don't know, the why, we can speculate. The how, well, that's pretty easy. The military-industrial complex, pretty much, we know what methods will be used. Who will deploy them, under what circumstances and conditions. If I listen to guys like Boris Johnson, Hillary Clinton, Zbigniew Brzezinski, George Soros, Henry Kissinger, Bushes, Blairs, Obamas, Camerons, even Harper's when he was in. Justin Trudeau, I think he hasn't really. He's one thing I will give him. Like, he's a horrible prime minister. Don't kid yourself. I mean, he's genocidal in other ways, but at least you can survive him, you know. But the thing is, he'll just go along with whatever. You know, he clearly marches to the tune, clearly, of George Soros. The Trudeau government is pretty much like that with George Soros. They can't praise him enough. They refer to him as our good friend George Soros. So that tells you everything. But yeah, it's just really ridiculous of what's going on. The other motive, and this I see more from the Israeli side, is to eliminate not only their enemies, but to eliminate their allies if they can get the United States to kill their enemies for them. But then the United States gets killed, the people of the United States get killed in the process of fighting the other guys. So the enemy of my enemy is still my enemy. You know what I mean? Like, it's like kind of a strange thing. And you can see these wars in, like, Syria. Look, ISIS never, you know, jihadists, if you listen to jihadists, their number one hatred of all times for Muslims in general is Israel. They all hate Israel. Maybe not every one of them, but 99.9% of the time, they all hate Israel. They hate Zionism. And Zionism is a very horrible supremacist religion, mostly made up of Jews, but they're, like, again, your neocon, Christian, Zio Christians, that type of thing. They're in there, the Jesuits, they're in there. They're all kind of they're all different denominations of the same doom, right? But one thing you'll say about Israel is that how it could start these conflicts in the Middle East, and then just kind of steps by and lets everybody else take care of it. And the problem with that is that that won't work either, because the idea of wiping out every Arab or whatever in the name of, you know, terrorism, freedom, whatever, you know, war on terror. The war on terror can never be. It's a war on an ideology cannot work. But you fight it with other ideologies. You don't fight it with weapons, right? Conventional. But that's what we're doing. So really, the idea is just to rack up a body count for Israel. And I know, everybody blames Israel for everything. But again, it's who's arming ISIS? Who's treating them in their hospitals? The United States government, Israeli government. It is so openly admitted, even by Mossad generals. You know, they went to jail, 2 guys. The propaganda pictures are still all over the internet of these 2 guys. One guy was a little bit younger, he's got the beard and whatever, the other guy a little bit older. And both of these generals say, we created ISIS. El-Baghdadi, an ex-Mossad agent. There's no such thing as an ex-Mossad agent. There's living and not living. That's that type of thing. But yet, ISIS has never attacked Israel once. Not once. They've threatened. But it's funny how the ISIS leaders keep them away from... I'm not saying they'd be any more successful against Israel than they would Syria. But you can clearly see that they're being kept in Syria for a reason, because of who's funded. I mean, the M16s and all the 223 or 556 ammo going from Israel to ISIS, when they call getting into the hands of ISIS, and they call it moderate rebels and saying, oh, no, well, that's just the stuff that was left over in Iraq that just went... No, it's not. It's new stuff. It's new stuff. Ammo runs out unless people resupply you. It's that simple. You've got footage of ISIS members called Free Syrian Army, of course, being treated in Israeli hospitals. But yet none of them attack Israel. Don't you find that odd? I do. So all these wars in the Middle East, and Israel gets to sit them out. But then the biblical side of things, Israel's supposed to get destroyed because everybody's going to turn against Israel. And again, as people find out the truth, of course they're going to turn against Israel. But the problem is biblical Israel is not necessarily the Israeli government. And there's a lot of Jews out there, particularly like the Ashkenazis and whatever, sitting there screaming how against Zionism and saying our government has been basically hijacked and it's an illegal government. Israel in itself has been created in 1948. Why did the Israelis, pick a state right in the middle of the Sea of Arabs? People who they know even back then hated them. Why would they do this? They had the option to go to Alaska as a Jewish state. They had that option. They didn't take it. Why would they do that? You know what I mean? Like logic says, if we go to Israel, okay, yeah, Alaska has winter and bad mosquitoes and stuff like that, but you're not going to die surrounded in a sea of Arabs. Well, it's simple. They're not afraid of the Arabs. They're not afraid of Islam and stuff like that. What they're afraid of is governments that can overthrow them. So the Greater Israel Project, is what we're seeing now, which leads us directly into a thermonuclear war with Russia or China. Because the Middle East isn't about Assad, or it wasn't even about Saddam. It's, again, coming back to the other things mentioned. It's about control and balkanizing the Middle East so that nobody can ever rise against Israel under the Greater Israel Project. In other words, put everybody fighting each other, give them all these little tiny ethno-states, and then we'll be saved. But that won't work. Why? Because, again, when people find out what the plan is, they're pissed. So what happens when, and you are starting to see like, other than the world elites, nobody really supports Israel. Like, even mainstream media, leftist media on top of that, which is pretty much run by Jews, is turning on Israel, saying, that they're becoming more Palestinian. But Jew-Palestine thing, that's not really the issue. It really isn't. It's the World War III thing that is the issue. And when you look at the policies of Israel, it's very, very clear that it's genocide. It's genocide. They genocide the Palestinians, genocide the Syrians, genocide anybody around them. You know what I mean? Using the budget of the United States, billions of dollars going there. Israel would not exist without the United States and, I guess, Canada and other nations donating, sacrifice money to it. That type of thing. So, where there really does need to be regime change, that's in Israel. If you want to actually dial us back, we can't follow AIPAC or the ADL or the Southern Poverty Law Center or all these other Jewish organizations that want, something like 11 or 14 Jewish organizations calling for the flooding of Syrian refugees into Europe, but not taking on a single one in Israel. You know what I mean? So people are starting to see these things, and you're seeing a plan develop. You're seeing that destabilization is the plan. So why are they doing it? And who is the plan really against at the end of the day? It's against Russia and China. Who can fight back? What can they fight back with? Thermonuclear weapons. So when you realize that, I'm going to have to pull over, stop the phone there. But when you realize that, then you come to the conclusion that, yes, they really do want to take us to war. Even if you just go by the Georgia Guidestones and stuff like that, there's some stuff that, and just think of all the mainstream media that is called, basically, independent media, wrong, lunatics, conspiracy theorists, and look at all this stuff. Usually, what they call you a conspiracy theorist for today, they will validate 6 months or 8 months later and say, oh yeah, well that really happened, but it's not what you thought. So the thing is that people are seeing the lies and they're catching on to it. Never foreseen other than the U.S. election. It really shows how biased the media is, to the point where it's like they're going down they're hanging on to a drowning man if they keep doing what they're doing. The mainstream media is not going to get out of this one alive. Neither will these politicians. If they take us to war, I believe there's going to be factions. There is going to be a U.S. military coup in the United States. The question is, does it come on the brink of war or after the war starts? That's all we really need to know. Either one leads to disaster, I think. But I will say this for sure, that stepping stones are there. The motives are not 110% clear, but it seems like there's motives on a bunch of different sides that do seem to fit. So the exact motives, I don't think is just one thing. There's a whole, not group, but groups of people that want thermonuclear war with Russia. Because they think it'll be like World War II, and in the ashes and rubble, just start the whole system over again like they did after World War II. We'll just live in our bunkers for a little bit. They don't understand how radiation works. You don't just go to your bunkers for a couple of decades, or a couple of years, or a couple of days, or a couple of weeks. That's your tomb. You're going to irradiate the world with the amount of weapons on it. That type of thing. So whether you take a far side approach to the motive of World War III, or you take the approach of just greed and psychopathy, all of it works. That's the problem. All of it works. And you can point to this person, that person, and the other person and say, okay, well, this person has already got the money. They already control enough resources. They already control enough power that they could actually use this for good and say, well, because, they can manipulate the system to be prosperous for everybody. They could do this. But they don't. So there has to be other, the death and destruction of it has to be a sacrifice. That has to. That's the only thing that makes sense. 1.5 million Iraqis, about a quarter million Libyans, now a quarter million, or almost 500,000 Syrians. So it has to be some sort of a bloodletting. Again, it's not what you believe; it's what these insane people believe. And just because they don't come off as Rain Man or one who flew over the cuckoo's nest doesn't mean they're not clinically insane. I mean, these people, again, people believe all kinds of things. They believe all kinds of things. And it's not what you believe, but what they believe. And I think that's where the danger lies, is how do you put these people into check, into moderating them so that they can't get out of control. Well, especially when the system is hell-bent on defending these people. You know what I mean? Like these FBI agents that, won't prosecute Hillary Clinton. Like, what's in it for them? It makes no sense. It makes no sense unless you factor in that kind of level of insanity. That these people, they're just doing their job, just following orders because somebody manipulated them to do it. But if they were to think about this logic and reason, is their paycheck and their career really worth a thermonuclear war? No. You'll find another job. To save the reputations of these people, guarding them, hiding their criminality for them. What does that do for you? Why would you save a corrupt system? Why would you do that? The only way you're going to do that is if you're manipulated to. What strength do these people have over you that you can't tell them no? You know what I mean? I'd love to sit face to face with George Soros. You might want to put me more than arm's length from him, though, because I'll probably slug him. But I'd love to sit there and ask him why he's so fucking evil. What do you get out of all this death and destruction? I can prove, with my arguments, and just with your own statements, how evil you are. I don't even have to find that much evidence outside your own justifications for destabilizing the Ukraine, arming neo-Nazis, for arming jihadists, and now supporting the White Helmets to help the jihadists. That type of stuff. And you admit it. Again, these people are so psychopathic. Like, well, they believe they're untouchable. But I believe there is an accountability in this world or in the next. There will be an accountability. The question is the people that hold these people to account, how bad are they going to be? Because think about it. And this is kind of a strange thing. Most people aren't psychopathic, but 1 in 10 people show some form of psychopathy. Whether it's narcissistic, there's like about 18 to 22 types of psychopath on the planet. I just got to pull over. I'm just going to get around the corner here. Stop the corner. And the kicker here is that, again, gravitating to power, manipulation, all the above, narcissism, whatever it might be. For somebody to do that stuff, okay, it really, you have to start asking yourself a bunch of questions. How do they have power over me? They don't. Like, I could tell George Soros no. But you notice who they get. They get the willful, blissful idiots. The ones that want to believe in, climate change, and ones that want to believe in, all that stuff. So they manipulate people called useful idiots. There's no doubt about that. Your social justice warriors and stuff like that. But the people that should know better, that do, like the law enforcement military, why are you not upholding your rule of law? This is the bigger question. Think of the consequences of not upholding rule of law. Is thermonuclear disaster? Do you love your kids? Do you love your family? Step up to it. Now, there are people right now trying desperately to do that in a corrupt system. So it really tells you that the system has to be torn apart. Will Donald Trump be the one to do that? I mean, there are good psychopaths out there, believe it or not. Like, they're, the traits are nor good nor evil. I think it's how they're deployed. But it does seem that the traits come out in a more negative light than a positive light. But strangely enough, I mean, an athlete that wants a gold medal is a narcissistic person. They want that for several reasons. But trust me, they have to be a bit, maybe not psychopathic, but they're going to be narcissistic, which is a form of psychopathy to a degree, to be able to be determined enough to beat other people to do that and not accept failure. That type of thing. But how they accept failure, okay, I lost, I came in second place, congratulations, I'll shake the hand of the winner, hand of the winner. Whereas a total psychopath would just go, he cheated, whatever, and go on like that kind of rant and tirade. So there's different forms of it. But at the end of the day, any logical, rational person has to look at these people and say, for me not to speak out, for me not to say something, for me not to do the right thing, the disaster, again, is some of the reasons why I make these videos is to wake people up to the idea of we have to do the right thing. We have to stop these people before it's too late. We're getting towards a brink level with the thermonuclear war. We've never been closer to a thermonuclear war in history, including the Cuban Missile Crisis. And we have, like, right now, about 1,000 Cuban Missile Crisis potentials everywhere, which could lead to a Kursk-style incident, or what I now call a Turk-style incident with the shooting down of the Russian jet, to a full-out thermonuclear war and thermonuclear exchange. Because we're too scared to take the ridicule of these psychopaths that tell us we have to go to war, or else we're racist, bigot, homophobe, xenophobe, all that stuff. Or non-patriotic or whatever, or cowards or whatever. Like the dumb stuff that they throw at you. Throw logic and reason at them. You'll reach the masses, but the people we have to reach is the law enforcement. The people in the system have to, even if it comes at their own cost, they have to stop this system from getting out of control. Until we can get to a day where we can load up nukes onto a rocket ship and just hurl them into the sun, get them off the planet, yeah, a matter of if. Not a matter of if, but just when. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. So if you've got other things that you think I might have missed, put it down below. But if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation. Channel links down below. Thank you so much to everybody else. Next time, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. Be true to yourself, be true to others. Always do the right thing, and have yourselves a great day. Eh? G'day, hi, and welcome. Okay, so I'm here at the library doing my uploading. Yes, I'm parked in the handicap zone, but technically my van qualifies as handicapped. It's got a cracked windshield, a burnt-out headlight, bad tires. Brakes aren't the best, so it's kind of handicapped. So I'm just going to leave it. Well, it's after hours, so I can park here after hours. Just getting around here. Okay, reasons for World War III. This is a question I get from time to time, and it can be speculated so many different directions that you almost don't know where to really start. I mean, there's just so many possibilities. So we'll start with the obvious and work to the maybe not so obvious. First one is oil. That one we'll say is the obvious, because we know of the gas pipelines and stuff like that. It's not so much about where the gas pipelines go or the oil where it gets pumped from or where it's going to. It's what it's sold in. And it's not just oil. There's a whole bunch. It's everything from wheat to grain. The idea of a reserve currency like the U.S. petrodollar, okay, that is better than the golden rule. The golden rule is ye who has the gold rules, but ye who controls the domination of the gold, and the resources is even better off, because it doesn't matter if you own the resources if they have to sell it in your currency. Hence, here in Canada, how strong would Canada be as a nation if we sold our oil, had been selling our oil in Canadian dollars and not US dollars? We'd be unbelievably much more powerful than what we were, or what we are. And the petrodollar's actually held us back. It's helped us because we're a bordering nation to the United States, sure, granted, but it's actually held us back in, increasing the value of our currency. I won't get too far into it, but you get the idea. And the reason why it does is because if your currency gets too inflated, this is what's going on in Greece, Spain, and Italy, and all those places right now, is when you own your own currency, you can devalue your currency. At the same time, the Chinese have purposely devalued their currency so it wouldn't get too strong. And how they did that was by buying U.S. debt. So if the Chinese ever decide to get rid of that $4 trillion of debt that's owed, that they own of the U.S., well, the hyperinflation will hit China so hard they won't even know. It'll just knock them off their feet. You know what I mean? So they have two options: A, spend the currency, which they've built these mega cities that nobody lives in, gigantic cities nobody lives in China, so that if the U.S. currency goes down, which it is kind of going down, that it doesn't, you're not stuck holding all this worthless cash, that you actually still have value to your currency. Now, that sounds good and dandy and all. If you manage it properly, you shouldn't have any problems. The problem is everything's rigged, everything's corrupt, nobody's managing anything properly. You can even get away with fiat currency if you don't, if you manage it properly. Not in the sense that it holds any more value or any less value. What it is that you're not creating the cost of living so high that people just can't afford to eat. Like, everybody thinks it's a minimum wage issue, okay? The reason why people can't get by is because they're not making $15 an hour or something like that. That's not true. That is definitely not true. it's not about the 15 an hour. 15 an hour really won't help you, because 15 an hour when your taxes go up doesn't help you. You lose it in taxes. And yeah, you're making a little more money, but you're now paying more in taxes, so you're not really making any more. The other one is that it's not that you need to be making $15 an hour. It's your money cannot buy what it used to. I'll use my dad as an example, okay? Right now I'm driving around in my mom's van. This was her last van. And it was well used when she bought it. The heck was that? And she paid $1,800 for this van. That's already, I guess, she had it for about 3 or 4 years before she passed away. And this van, off the line, would probably have been close to $20,000 for a shit bucket like this. I shouldn't say that until I get home. it might resent me and leave me somewhere. My dad bought a brand new Chevy Nova back in '73 for $29,99.95 cash. He bought it cash. Now in '73, he wasn't making $20 an hour. Now, mind you, when we went out to the pipelines out west in the later '70s, my dad was making insane money for the time. He was bringing home probably about $4,000 a month in 1978, 79, working on a pipeline. That'd be like making 15 grand now. I'm just throwing an arbitrary number on that. But you could see how much more the money bought you back then. So in 1 month, you could buy a car. And that was the end of a recession. That was getting on the tail ends of a recession. In the 1970s, there was a huge recession. But in 1 year's time, you made not only enough money, if you were working, like, say, on a pipeline or something, a really high-skilled labor job, you could make enough money to buy a car a month and still have more than enough to raise your family, 2 kids and a wife, and you know what I mean? Like, you can't even fathom them. Like, and that was the common man. That was the common person working. Most women didn't work at that time. It's still the same. Most men work. But the thing is women are alienated now to the point where, the provider is either the government or themselves. There is no husbands. You know what I mean? Like, there's still husbands and wives, but it's not like it used to be where, you met your high school sweetheart, you got married, and from there you went and bought a house, white picket fence, had 3 kids, a cat, goldfish, 2 dogs, a pet gerbil or a mouse, maybe a pet turtle or 2, 3 cars, a boat, possibly an airplane or a helicopter, that type of thing. And that's the people that weren't really that wealthy. That's the people that really weren't that wealthy. You probably only had one TV in your household. If you had 2 TVs and 1 colored and 1 black and white, you were doing good. If you had 2 colored TVs in your household and a 3rd black and white TV, holy geez, you were, but you could buy, like right now, you got to lease a TV. You know what I mean? You got to lease a TV. Back then, a state-of-the-art TV, okay, maybe a month's worth of saving up, you could buy it. You didn't buy things on credit. The furniture stores didn't have credit. You went in and you bought the furniture and you left that day with it. You didn't put it on layaway. You didn't. I mean, there were, exceptions to the rule. But generally speaking, no. When you bought things for the house, the china cabinet, the dining set, you bought it cash. Now, the average person making $3, $4, $5 an hour could still do this. It would take them all year to do it, but they could still do it. Why? Because rent was like $80, $90, $200 a month. An expensive place would be like $600 a month. But that'd be like renting a house with all expenses paid, pretty much. You know what I mean? Maybe not everywhere, but you get the idea of the average. Now, find an apartment for $600 with nothing included. Good luck. Good luck. Why? Your currency just doesn't buy as much. So this is what has to be understood about a reason why the petrol